No pun intended. Episode 4. Can't believe we made it 4 episodes already. Today we are going over a course giveaway, brand new chess goals course, talking about the new rules for qualifying for the candidates, talking about Hans Niemann, and answering your questions. How you doing, Matt?
Good, Jesse. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. So we just released the Queen's Indian course. We have course co-creator James in the chat. Thank you for all your hard work, James. It's a good course. I haven't had a time to really dig into it, but during this podcast, we're going to give away a free course to anyone who comments on the video. So in order to be eligible for a course giveaway, we're going to ask a question at the end. Got to answer with that question, and we'll pick a random comment and get in touch with how to claim your free course. How is it working with James?
Oh, James is awesome. And James did all the work on the course. So really, I was just there to, throw a few questions back and forth, maybe add a coaching tip or two, but James carried the load. He did a great job. And we're already getting some amazing feedback in Discord. People are loving the course, both the Queen's Indian and the Nimzo Indian course.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if you want a discount on the course, you can use code James at checkout. But if you want a free course, you're gonna have to wait till we ask the question at the end and you'll be able to answer. We'll get in touch with how to get your free course. First up, Matt, they changed how to get into the candidates.
Yes. And this is something that they've been tweaking a little bit year after year.
Hmm.
Um, do you want to do a screen share of the image? Is that okay?
Yep.
We'll kind of talk through what was done in 2024 and what is going to be done in 2026 and what we think of these changes. In 2024, we had the World Championship match runner up auto qualified. So that was Jan Nepomniachtchi. But for 2026, we do not have the runner up auto qualifying. So I'm interested to hear what you guys think of that. Do you think the champ or the loser from the last championship match should auto qualify? What do you think, Jesse?
I kind of think yes, they have proved that they are capable of winning the tournament. And so to me, I feel like that should be an automatic qualification. I can see how they would not want to do that though. But yeah, I kind of feel like if you win the candidates the year before, or I guess lose, you should be grandfathered in for another at least shot at the world championship.
I've changed my thoughts on this. I used to think the same way. And I think my attitude was more that, hey, like you said, you've proven you're a good player. And same thing with the rating. So the last one on there is top rated player who doesn't qualify from those other events, which are World Cup, three qualifications, Grand Swiss two, FIDE Circuit one in 2024, or two in 2026. If you don't qualify in any of those, then it's top player by rating. I used to think candidates should just be the top seven players by rating, plus the player that didn't qualify or didn't win the last championship. But now I sort of think that is a lame format because a lot of the players at the top are very content to just sit on their ratings, draw all their games, not play very exciting chess, not play any of the big opens, don't play the knockouts. They just play invitational round robins and they sit on the rating. We don't want to see those same players over and over. So now I sort of go the other extreme. I would love to just see more players qualify, but in formats that don't allow too much luck. So the World Cup does have quite a bit of luck involved because you can easily get knocked out early as a strong player. But I really enjoy the FIDE circuit. And I think they should do more of that where they have big events that help you qualify, but you have to prove, hey, I was a top player in 2024, 2025 to qualify for 2026, not just, hey, I sat in my rating and then like Perugia, he had all those tournaments lined up for him just to try to qualify by rating. That's
Yeah.
not a good process. So I think get rid of that world championship runner up. Great idea. I would say even get rid of the one rating spot, make it more FIDE circuit spots.
Yeah, and I think you're right with the World Cup. Like three seems like a lot for World Cup. It's also kind of like a weird amount, like you have to win the third place match to get in.
Yeah,
I think it'd be cool if they just had an open tournament, just pick one open tournament. It's like whoever wins this tournament outright gets in. So that could be anyone. You kind of have to prove that you can like step up in a clutch situation and win a tournament. I don't know. It seems like you shouldn't get into the candidates without winning a tournament. That seems a little weird to me.
I'm trying to remember the FIDE Grand Swiss, the format for that. What was the format for the Grand Swiss? 11 rounds, one tournament.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, so that is two people qualifying from one event.
Okay, that's legit.
Yeah,
I, yeah, and I definitely like the FIDE circuit because that's like a series of tournaments and you get points based on like how well you play, obviously, but also how many of the events you play.
right.
So I'm in favor of that. I think is that how Hikaru got in last candidates, or was that World Cup? No, I think it was FIDE circuit.
I think it was FIDE Circuit. And then they do have a footnote for this next one for 2026. If the highest rated player also qualified with any other path, that slot goes to the FIDE Circuit 2026 or 2025, meaning there could be three FIDE Circuit slots instead of one, which is what there was for this current candidates tournament. So I think these are good changes. I think we're going to get more exciting players. We will get some low rated players sneaking in there, but they have to have really good performances to qualify.
Yeah. Yeah, I see in the chat. It's a footnote just saying it's Magnus. It's Magnus's if he wants to play. Yeah, I think that should definitely be definitely be in the footnote. It's like if Magnus wants to play the World Chess Championship, they just kick someone out. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
whoever qualified via candidates, you get the next turn. Magnus is then.
Let's see. Benjamin is saying, I think the loser should auto qualify because it takes so much time prepping. That's a really good point, Benjamin. I'm not too upset if the loser does go back to qualifying again.
Yeah. Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see how that shapes up. So in 2025, so that's next year, there's potential that the top two finishers will make the candidates. Um, yeah, it feels far away, very far away. So when is a candidates tournament this year? Do you know?
I don't know the date off the top of my head, but I know why the schedule got funky. It was because of COVID. So what FIDE wants to do is they want a candidates every even year and a world championship every odd year, I believe.
Okay. Oh yeah, because I
Or both every
remember.
2 years somehow.
Okay, it's like the Olympics, like they stagger every 2 years.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I remember didn't they play like half the candidates and then they postponed it due to COVID?
Yeah, that's right. Okay, the
Yeah.
chat's very helpful. April 3rd to 22nd, April 3rd to 22nd. Thank you
Yeah, it's
guys.
actually, yeah, that's not far away at all.
I'm super excited for the candidates. We should do YouTube recaps of some of those games.
Oh yeah, for sure. We should like do daily podcasts just going over each round.
Not a bad idea. Take a leave of
Uh,
absence from our jobs and just live stream them all.
that sounds good to me.
Do you think there are too many rest days for the candidates? Oh, that's a good question. I think they had a rest day every third day, if I remember right.
Yeah, 2 rounds and 1 day off, and then another two. Currently four scheduled. And let's see, it's a double round robin with how many qualifiers? Eight. So it's going to be 14 rounds.
Yeah. Okay, here's the format. 4 rounds, rest day. 3 rounds, rest day. 3 rounds, rest day. Two, rest, two, and then tie breaks the day after that.
Okay.
I think it's pretty reasonable, actually. They do have to play 4 rounds right up front, one rest day, and then three more rounds in a row. That's 3 rounds and then a rest day is pretty grueling.
Yeah, that's a lot. I'm just reading a chess.com article about this. So it starts off in the wake of a 2024 candidates qualification cycle plagued with tumult and controversy. The World Chess Federation, FIDE, has announced new regulations aimed at enhancing competitive landscape, encouraging player participation, and ensuring fair representation of the top contenders. So you're kind of getting this with the Faruja playing in a tournament to pump his rating up a little bit and like just edging out Wesley So. It says posted on the FIDE's official website, the most significant, albeit surprising revelation is the fact that the World Championship runner-up will no longer automatically qualify for the subsequent candidates tournament. So we spent a lot of time talking about that. Instead, there will be a second spot allocated to the FIDE circuit. Um, yeah, so I think we pretty much covered it, but that is for sure quite the change, and it makes sense why they would kind of change up the format because this year has been a bit awkward. They're scrambling to play tournaments, and Fallujah just snuck in at the last minute. Don't forget, that's how Ding Liren became world championship. He did the exact same thing. And if you go back to that tournament, very sketchy results. I'm not calling Ding a cheater or anything, but it was basically Ding and three other challengers, all from China. I believe they played everyone three times, and in every single game, against every single opponent, Ding won two and drew one, and every other game, the entire tournament, all draws. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that's a very specific result.
Yeah. And we've seen these top players take draws and things to qualify for events outside of the candidates or share titles, share prize funds. It's a thing at the top level. Interesting, says
Yeah.
Benjamin. Yes.
We'll just leave it there. I don't think Ding was cheating. Maybe this could have been like a Chinese Federation thing where they said, we want someone in the match. This is what's going to happen. I truly have no idea. I'm completely speculating. But chess cheating has been in the news again lately. We covered a bit of this last episode with Kramnik, just accusing everyone and their dog about with cheating. But he recently went on a podcast. This was the Blitzstream podcast. I did not get a chance to listen to it. It was just a couple days ago, but Matt was listening and sending me some interesting points that Kramnik was making. So what was he talking about?
So I think there are a lot of things that Kramnik has said about players cheating that seem really out there in left field, not much basis at all. But he does make some good points. And I think we need to sort of use his accusations slash comments, suspicions to maybe revisit how we think of cheaters in online chess. And I will say, I've done some consulting work for chess.com and their cheat team. So I know a lot of the inner workings of how the cheat detection works for chess.com. But first, I think what we should do is talk about the scenarios where players cheat. So if, let's say, you were a cheater, Jesse, in a tournament where you're playing people from your friend group or from your work, and you're just doing enough to beat those people, do you think that should be something where chess.com says, okay, this player was reported, we're 50% sure he cheated, but let's say it's not super obvious. We 50% chance he cheated, 50% he doesn't. What do you think chess.com should do in that case?
I think they should probably mark them invisibly as on a cheating scale. I don't think it should be a binary. This is a cheater. This is not a cheater. It's like your slider goes up. So maybe I'm a zero online, but maybe if I have a very suspicious result, maybe I tick up to like a 20. It's based on like how many games I've played, how drastic of a result it was. I know that they can check whether I'm like changing tabs on my browser, and when I come back, am I making a very good move? But I think you kind of adjust the slider, and the farther and farther it goes, the more you tick up that slider, and eventually you just get the human interaction or like human review, and at some point you got to make a call that this person's a cheater.
And what percent would you make that call? What percent sure that that player is a cheater
I
for
think you have
this
to be,
case?
I think you have to be pretty sure. It's different with me because I'm like a nobody. I'm just like a 1600 chess player like anybody else. But when it comes to GMs and people who make a living off of chess, I think you got to be pretty close to 100% sure to make that call.
And I think this is where Kramnik is having the problem. Because in statistics, there's sensitivity and specificity. So if you think of it black and white, there's two scenarios. I think you cheat or I don't think you cheat, which could be you're banned or you're still playing. And that's sort of how it's set up now. You're banned or you're not.
Yep.
And then there's two outcomes that you cross with that. You're a cheater or you're not. So in a perfect world, all banned players are cheaters, all unbanned players are clean. But the higher the threshold you have for finally detecting a cheater, the more likely you are to let cheaters roam in the wild and keep playing events. So at a lower level, it's much different stakes than when you're at a higher level, like you said, where not only are these players competing for money, but they're professionals and their reputations are on the line. So it's a big deal to call a professional chess player a cheater. But on the flip side, if you're the professional chess player, you should do everything in your power to make sure that you are not tempted to cheat if you think that being called a cheater is going to ruin your career, right? So, what Kramnik is saying is chess.com should not wait until they're 99.999% sure that a GM is a cheater before they ban that player. Because essentially they're letting a lot of very suspicious players play in prize events. Even if they do some additional monitoring or things, they're letting a lot of players play in the prize events. So this is Kramnik's big problem. So he'll run into people that he plays that he finds suspicious. Now, the way he finds players suspicious, I do think is interesting. What he will do is he will say, here's your FIDE rating, here's your age, here's the trajectory of your over the board play. So if you're an 18-year-old who has a FIDE rating of 2,500, you're at your peak, you've gained 100 points in the last year, and your blitz rating puts you at 3,000, let's say on chess.com. That 3,000 blitz rating maybe on average is, let's say, 2,650 FIDE or 20, maybe 2,700 FIDE.
Hmm.
So could a 2,550 FIDE play at a 2,700 FIDE level? Well, if you're 18 years old, you just gained 100 rating points, you're a prodigy, doesn't seem too suspicious. Now, if you extend those parameters a bit, let's say you're a 45-year-old, 2,550, you were up to 2,600 at one point, you're on the decline. You're still playing events, but we are very, very sure that your over the board strength is 2,550. Your FIDE blitz, let's say, is lower than that, and you've played a lot of blitz events over the board. You're 2,510. But then you're clocking in at 3,050 chess.com blitz, and you're winning some money here and there. And you're knocking off Vladimir Kramnik sometimes. The events you win money, you're playing at a level that looks like a Magnus Carlsen or a Hikaru winning money. Those are the type of players that Kramnik is saying, hey, I don't think this person should be able to get away with that. And what MVL and Kramnik kind of agreed on is they both thought there should be a group of players that we're not banning. We're not saying, hey, you're a cheater. And we're not saying you're completely clean. Go ahead, win all the money in these events. They want a group of players that we just aren't 100% sure you're clean. We're not saying you cheat. We're not saying you don't cheat, but we need to take additional, very strong measures for you to prove yourself that you can completely tell us, reassure us that you do not cheat. And what MVL was saying is he thinks players should have a human proctor that can watch them play a certain number of blitz games and say, okay, with close surveillance, you have proven you're a 30-50 blitz player. You're good to go. Join the titled events, join the money events. And Kramnik agreed with this too. It's going to cost a lot of money to do that sort of thing, but MVL's point is we have these tournaments all around the world. You could have a couple designated people that could do this, and that could be sort of a middle ground to make everyone happy.
Yeah, it could
And
almost be like a tax audit. It's like not everyone is going to get audited, but
yeah,
the fear of getting audited, like no one wants to mess up their taxes because you're going to go to jail for 5 years. Like, Chess, you're not going to go to jail, but we are going to ban you, and you're not going to be playing in any money tournaments. Another thing they could do with these like yellow light players, I'm not quite sure, is they could allow them to play in the money tournaments, but not award them prize money. So it's like they appear completely clean to everybody, but chess.com and the players know like you're not eligible for money until we figure out if you're actually I don't know, actually clean. Um Couple messages, if they change the threshold to 95% sure instead of 99% sure, would that solve the problem? Um I think it would help a lot actually, because going from 95 to 99, that's a big jump. It's like the last 5% is takes as long to get it. Like it's easier to get from 0 to 95 than 95 to 99. So yeah, I think that would help a lot.
wait, so we're saying 95% we auto ban,
Yep.
but that means 1 out of 20 players.
Yeah, 1 out of
We're
20 were falsely banning it. And I think
That's a
we don't
lot.
want that. I think we don't want the false positives because that can have serious ramifications on someone's career. And it would probably open chess.com up open to lawsuits as well.
And that's where I like your idea of calling it sort of yellow light players. You're just a player that we don't completely trust yet. And this was a proposal I had a while back. I think chess.com could sort of have a trusted player badge where you're titled and you're trusted, you can compete in money events because it doesn't seem that they should have to allow any title player to compete in a money event. It should be up to them who can compete for money, I think. But I don't know the legalities of that. Maybe they need to open it up to everybody. I'm not sure. I
Yeah,
wouldn't think so.
I'm not sure the lines on that. Um, yeah, so
Yes,
yellow light
Benjamin.
players.
Yeah, read the last point.
Yeah, so another comment. Yellow light players only get matched with yellow light players, sort of a shadow ban. Yeah, I'm just the only thing is I'm not sure we'd have enough yellow players for that to work. But it is interesting when people do get shadow banned, like on some free website, they don't actually ban a lot of their they don't actually ban a lot of their cheaters. They only match them up with other cheaters, which is hilarious. Um, yeah, there's something else I was going to say here too, where I lost my train of thought.
Oh, the Benjamin's point about auto ban for most players if you have 95% plus on games with moves over 30 plus moves. That's a hard one too, Benjamin, because accuracy scores are very closely linked to the type of game you play. So there was a game recently where Hans played Magnus. They traded all these pieces, went into a king and pawn only endgame, shuffled their kings for about 50 moves until they reached the draw, and I believe their accuracy scores were 99.9 each. So that sort of game, they didn't show anything special. They didn't pose each other with any difficult chess questions. Jesse and I essentially could have played that same game, at least if we had planned it in advance without needing an engine, right? Just, hey, we're going to swap everything off in this known drawn type opening, king upon endgame. We'll just shuffle kings. So you really can't just base it on the numbers. That's the difficult thing.
You'd almost have to have some sort of like unique and difficulty index on a like middle game positions or something like that. But that's really hard to quantify. I bet chess.com could do something like that and take a look at it. But yeah, not. uh not an easy problem for sure. I know that this is if I had to identify one like potential nuclear issue with chess, like the one thing that could kill chess, and I think it's cheating.
Yeah.
Like nothing makes the game, nothing would kill the game than ha rampant cheaters. Like how sad would it be if we found out that like the top 10 players all you have some kind of assistance and that's why they can play so well. Like that'd be terrible. I
Reminds
don't
me
think
of
they are.
the Lance Armstrong cycling scandal. I wasn't big into cycling, but when that came out, all of a sudden it seemed all the top cyclists were cheaters.
But yeah, because Lance got busted very publicly, obviously, but he was also beating the best of everyone else who was also doping. So I think if you got rid of everyone who eventually had a positive test, the guy who got like 34th place would have won or something like way down the line. It was
Yeah.
just rampant and I don't know. Uh, so you're talking about the two types of players that Kramnik suspects versus a player who he doesn't suspect so much. This like brings me back to Fallujah. Like a lot of people thought that Fallujah was cheating. This was probably like 2 or 3 years ago, maybe even longer than that. But he was a 16-year-old kid, and he was really the only one that could play Hikaru pretty closely and not just get completely ruined, and a lot of people were suspicious of him. But I remember Danny saying publicly on stream, like, we have vetted Fallujah and he's just that good. He's going to be a superstar. He's going to, like, we assume he's 2,700 strength easily already. And sure enough, within a couple years, I mean, he's in the candidates. So that's a great example of someone who you can easily believe can play well above their blitz rating. I think Hans Niemann is in that same category. But if you go and compare that to maybe someone like a Ben Feingold, he's a little older. He's been playing a ton of blitz online for many, many years. If he just starts playing at a 3,100 level, like you're going to be a little suspicious, especially if he starts playing like F3 in some cases or F6. You know, he
Yeah.
didn't really doesn't like those moves.
Yeah. Engine might say to play it, but that's not true, Ben.
Another very interesting side note, how soon will Neuralink implants destroy OTB chess? I think they have to be banned from OTB chess, otherwise you're just going to know the moves.
Yeah. They can compete in computer competitions, maybe.
You just have to like never. Yeah, lots and lots of cheating discussions. Recently in a podcast, Fabiano Caruana said that he would bet serious money that someone currently in the top 10 has cheated. Who was it? Who do you think?
So the headline was a bit misleading. I was reading a little deeper into this, and I believe what he said is somebody at some point who was in the top 10 likely cheated. So not necessarily current top 10.
Okay.
He was just
Uh,
making the argument that there's not a certain threshold where above that rating everyone's clean. Because I think
yeah.
some people believe if you're in that upper echelon of 2,700 plus players, they're all clean. Bobby was saying, no, I think at some point I would bet money that somebody in the top 10 has cheated.
Okay, I'm looking at 2,700 chess. This is
Hmm.
everyone rated. This is basically the top 35 in the world. So Magnus number one, all the way down to a player I've not heard of, Javokir Sindarov. If I had to pick one person from this list, I'm going to get us canceled, Matt. Let me pick out one person and get your immediate reaction, okay?
Okay.
I'm not going to say,
Wait, what do I have
not
to
going
react? What do I have to say?
to,
Cheater or
just,
not?
yeah, just tell me if this gives you the right vibe. Okay, I'm going to give you one name, Shakhriyar Mamadreyev. He gave me
No
nothing.
reaction.
The only reason I bring him up, I have no idea, you guys. I'm totally just spitballing here. This is for content. But he had a huge run.
We're clipping this.
Uh, he had a huge run, kind of out of nowhere, made it to the top, top three even, and then just faded back. Nothing. What really changed? You know, he just has not been anywhere near that same performance of 2, 3 years ago. And he's not super old. He's 38. I don't know,
How old are you?
34.
There's no player in the top nine that's older than 36. I think it's
It-
age. And he's not the only one that happened to. Magnus is very strange in the fact that he can stay number one for this long with such a huge gap. We had Aronian number two for quite a while. We had Nakamura number two, MVL number two, Giri number two, Mamedyarov number two. These players all come up to number two, sit up there for a little bit, Caruana, and then they maybe I already said him. And then they drop, and it'll be a 50-point drop. And I think a lot of the players, it's just age. They aren't in their prime anymore. Bobby, he's still young. He could get back. He got back up there, but a lot of the players, it's age, I think.
Yeah, and I think that just shows how good Magnus is. Like all these people are fluctuating. They go on a big run, they kind of fade off, someone else takes over. Fabi is always in like the top two or three. It's really rare that he's like out of the top 10. But Magnus being on top for so long, I think he's been on top for over 10 years now. So impressive. So very impressive. I have no idea who's cheating, you guys. I'm just like you. I just thought I'd throw a name out there just to kind of spitball, just to throw things at the wall.
Yeah.
Number t Yeah, top nine was very specific, Matt. I agree.
Number 10 is 40.
Yeah, number 10 is Lanier, and he's 40. And then Sergey Karyakin, I don't know if he's even eligible. I don't think he's played in a while. But after number 12, 54-year-old Vishy Anand is hanging on. Yeah, Vishy is number 12. But definitely an outlier there. There's there's no one else over 50 on the over 2,700. So Vishy has very good staying power.
And we ran some stats back in the day on how many rating points you're expected to gain each year based on your age. The higher your rating gets, the more important it is to be younger. So at the very, very top level, I think players are peaking at age 35, maybe even a little bit less, 33, 34. After that, it becomes tough. It's really hard to be in the top 10 if you're over 40.
Yep, for sure. Um, yeah, so what's next? Any
We
other
could,
cheating stuff you want to talk about? You want to talk about like Hans at
yeah,
all?
we could talk. Let's talk a little bit about Hans. I just recently subscribed to Hans's YouTube channel, which is pretty entertaining because either Hans is the next best thing, he's the next Faruja, or who knows what's happening right now, and maybe he's pulling a fast one on all of us. But what I find interesting is Hans placed seventh place in the Tata Steel Challengers event. Very interesting. He was the top seed, seventh place. And Jesse and I were texting about this today. So his rating was 2692. His performance rating for placing 10th place, I don't have it calculated here, but it's probably around 2600. So he's performing at a 2600 FIDE. But his blitz rating on chess.com is number 3 now. So that would be the equivalent of about 2,800 FIDE. So there's a 200-point gap, we're saying, between his over the board classical skill and his online blitz skill. And if you look at the top two players above him in blitz, Magnus and Hikaru, both of them have the ability to separate themselves from all the other top super GMs in the world. They can separate themselves more in online blitz than they can in classical chess. I like your poll because think of this. When Hikaru plays Caruana, for example, in the Speed Chess Championship, he can crush Caruana 22 to 8, right?
Insane.
We're talking two 2800s. So Hikaru and Magnus have separated themselves above the other top 10 super GMs. And now we're saying Hans Niemann is at that same level. So this is the type of thing that Kramnik is suspicious of, but I do think it's super impressive. It's possible he's young and he's an improving player, like we talked about, but to be at that level, it's really, really impressive.
Yeah, let me be the Hans's advocate. I think Hans has been regularly performing close to the 2700 level for about a year now. Like he's right on the bubble of being 27. He had a pretty rough event last time in the Tata Steel's Challengers. I think he lost two games, like in rounds 4 and 5. But other than that, he played pretty well. And if he just is a better blitz player than his rating, let's say like if he played 100 games, what's his performance rating over the last 100 games? Probably like higher than 2600, probably like 2680, 2690. Maybe his true skill is a little bit above that. And if he's just a strong blitz player, maybe his like blitz rating would put him at like 2750 whatever blitz rating in FIDE. And now let's just say he goes on a bit of a run, like a fluky, variance type of thing, finds himself in the top five, top three. I don't think it's variance, sure. It's not enough for me to say I think he's likely cheating. Um, that being said, I don't know. I have no idea. Okay, so YouTube poll, is Hans clean online? Squeaky gets half the vote. Nah gets 50% of the vote. So we don't know. We have no idea. Um, the
And
biggest piece of evidence against Hans is Magnus called him out. Honestly.
yeah, and to Ian's point, we haven't said anyone's a cheater. Um, Mom and Yara was a joke by Jesse.
Yeah, I don't think he's a cheater. I just threw a name out there to talk about it. Like,
Yeah.
here's a guy who went up, who came down, and Matt totally gave the best reasonable explanation.
I
He hit a hot streak for sure. Kind of lost motivation after candidates or something. He's no motivation to stay in the top 10. I don't think Shaq cheated, you guys. Someone in the top 10 did at some point. I have no idea who it is. I have no idea the extent of how they cheated. We're just talking. We're just talking. Um, please don't sue me. Please don't sue us. He'll get nothing. We have nothing.
yeah.
All right, you mentioned age as a factor. Would it be normal for older players to be higher rated at longer time controls versus short time controls, or would that be suspicious? Um,
I don't think that would be suspicious because usually we're not suspicious of over the board players in general. It's more the online players that we're having more difficulty catching, I think. But I get your point. So if you're, let's say, a really consistent blitz player at a certain level, and then all of a sudden over the board you're improving a ton, but you're not improving the same in blitz, that could be suspicious.
what do you think goes faster? Like, let's say you're 45-year-old GM. Are your results going to start slipping more in blitz or start slipping more in classical?
I would say blitz. I think it's much harder to stay sharp as you get older. You know, when I'm rusty, I still feel I can jump into a classical event and do okay. I can use the time to think through things. But when I haven't played Blitz in 6 months and I log in and start playing a bunch of games, my rating's just gonna tank until I get used to it again.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel the opposite. I feel if I can like sit and really focus on a game of Blitz, like maybe it'll take me like 4 or 5 games to get kind of back into it. But if I can sit and focus on a game of Blitz, I feel like I can play pretty close to my rating. If I'm out of practice for classical, I play much worse. Like my openings
Interesting.
aren't as sharp, my time control is bad. I'm playing impulsive moves without fully calculating. So I could see it going either way. I think both are going to start to decline at a pretty similar rate. I'm not sure. I'm not sure which one to go first. Um, okay, confirming that we were at the heart of his questions. That's good. Um, all right, I have a story for you, Matt. I did not tell you this. I
Okay.
was playing some Bullet the other day, and I get matched against a women's international master.
Oh,
And I'm doing well. Um, Equal position, but she's playing very slow. I'm at like 30 seconds. She's at 10 seconds. And I'm just hanging on, hanging on, hanging on. She has 1 second left on her clock. I'm in a bad position. She has mate in one on the board, and she moves her rook over to the wrong square and flags. So I'm like, okay, how did a women's international master not see maiden one, not even a hard maiden one? Like I saw it defending. And I go to her profile and her bullet was like 1550, but her blitz was 2200 and her classical was like 20 or whatever they call it, 23, 2400. So huge gap in the opposite way. Like bullet is terrible,
Yeah,
slower time control is much better. And I think that's much more natural.
I agree. I like playing those players. It's usually older players, and you can get them in a time scramble.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know who it was. They were anonymous, but I beat a title player a couple days ago. So good job, me. Granted, it was bullet and I had made one on the board, but a dub is a dub.
What do you guys think about taking rematches after you beat a player? Because I have a chess student who you know, Jesse, I won't say his name, but he never takes a rematch with the hypothesis that a player is much more likely to cheat as, hey, I want to beat you because you just you just smoked me. I'm going to try to beat you back in a rematch. Do you guys think that's true?
I personally I don't subscribe to that. I think it's fun to get a little rivalry going. One person in the chat says I never rematch. Okay. I don't rematch all that often unless it's like you know, here's one time I do rematch. When I feel like a player is at a similar rating to me, but they have a huge hole that I can exploit. Um, this happens a lot in Bullet when people pre-move in the opening a lot. I feel like I can very easily exploit that. Like you can do the old Lafong, you just like put the
Right.
bishop on what like H6 or whatever it is. Um, but you can also exploit it just by like capturing or making a weird pawn break. And I think that's a huge weakness of just like blitzing out openings. Okay, in the chat, I never rematch, never rematch. I normally don't rematch. I try to evaluate all my games. Okay, best answer. Rematches are fun sometimes. Matt never rematches. I rematch, not against it. All right, we have a few questions.
Yeah.
Preguntas. Ready, Matt?
Yeah. So we asked you guys for questions in an email this afternoon. And I think we're going to continue to do this, right, Jesse?
Yeah, yeah, it'll be a recurring segment. So if you ever have a question, just email help@chessgoals.com and we will get back to you for sure. Well, if it's a good question, we'll read it on the podcast and answer it. If it's a bad question, maybe we'll just respond and say, that's a bad question.
Yeah.
Okay,
These
question one.
these will go to Jesse, so you might get that response.
I'm just kidding. We'll be more kind than that. We'll just ignore you. So that's help@chessgoals.com. Hi, Matt. I'm George, 1700 ECF rated player. I think that's like FIDE for Europe. Is that right? I think
I'm
so. It's
forgetting
a
which now, but
UK.
I think it's close to FIDE.
Okay.
It's England, yeah, UK or England.
Okay, so 1700. I feel like I play stronger than my rating and regularly end up in great positions against higher rated players. My main issue is that at some point I make outrageous blunders that would only be expected of someone a few hundred points lower rated than me. This doesn't happen online. Interesting. I'm able to keep my cool there, but over the board, I just seem to crack and do something ridiculous, and I'm probably at the very least 100 points lower rated than I would be if I blundered even a normal amount. It isn't comparable to anyone else I know, even those hundreds of points below me. I'm an anomaly. Hope you could offer up some guidance. Tough question.
Yeah, thanks for your question, George. The first thing I would like to know is what's your time control that you're playing online? Because you're comparing the blunder rate online to over the board. Are you playing very slow online games and making less blunders than over the boards? That's my first question. Because what I want to do is I want to dig into exactly why you're making these blunders. And a couple things come to mind. One is clock management. Are you letting the clock get too low over the board? Maybe you only have, let's say, a 5 second increment or 10-second increment. And online, you're playing 45 plus 45, for example. That's a massive difference. So, is it something with the time management? Number one. Number two, is it something with your nerves? And I know, Jesse, you get very nervous in your over the board games, but if it's something with your nerves or psychology, that's an aspect of your game that you can train. If it's time management, that's something you can work on. Um, and then number three, is it something with visualizing a 3D board? So if everything feels exactly equal, but there's just something about pieces where you don't see a piece that's hidden on the other side of the board, that's something you could work on too. Maybe you should be doing more training, George, using a physical board. So there's sort of three different scenarios there. I think if you can dig a little bit deeper and figure out exactly why you think this is happening, then you can work on the skill to fix that problem.
Yeah, and a lot of these routes kind of lead to more what I would guess it leads to more reps OTB. So just play more tournaments, practice maybe like practice setting up a real board and working through positions. I think maybe it's a real board type of thing that I don't know, that could be the issue. Does Chess for Zebras address this? I have not read that book.
I've not read it either, but I know Sean Nagel highly recommends that book.
Okay, I am from Minnesota. Shout out Minnesota. Um,
Thought I would finagle his way into the podcast.
Finagle, pun number one. Took a long time, but we are we are firmly in pun zone. Okay, next set of questions from Cody. Number one from Matt. If we could send you back in time with your knowledge of modern chess, how do you predict you would fare against Paul Morphy?
Cody's in the chat, and I appreciate the question, Cody, because you think very highly of me as a chess player. But I looked up how strong Paul Murphy would be in today's era, and I think he's still probably 2,500 FIDE, which is probably about 400 points higher than my FIDE skill level. I think I would get absolutely crushed by Paul Morphy. Even if I had access to all of his games, which I do, could look at his openings, look at his play style. If I were able to get one draw out of 10 games, I would be thrilled.
All right, there you have it. Old school players, but still legit. A lot of those old games are very accurate, which is crazy considering they're just like playing based on rules and principles. No, no engine to check anything with ever. Second question for me, what would you consider made the biggest impact on your chess improvement? And there's a couple things. Number one, I really loved the game. So I was just like always really interested in how chess worked. When I first started playing chess, I literally did not even know how the pieces moved. I would watch John Bartholomew's videos. He's like really the guy who got me into chess more so than just like fiddling around with the pieces. I would just watch his bullet and see how the pieces moved. I had no idea about the strategy. I'm like, okay, when he's recapturing with pieces a lot, not pawns. And then he would say like, oh, my pawn structure is really bad here. I'm like, okay, I don't really understand what that means. Um, so number one is being very interested and like in love with chess for a considerable amount of time. And after that, biggest impact I would say is just like playing a lot of games. I play Blitz a lot and just getting a lot of reps. If I had to pick out a couple things, that would be it. Just making it fun, being very interested for more than 6 months. I've been playing chess probably like 7 or 8 years now. I guess I don't even know. And it's just been a huge hobby for me that whole time. All right, for both, what are some of your favorite bands and albums?
You want to go first?
I will go first, and this is going to be our course giveaway question. Matt, you want to give the giveaway question?
Yep. I'm going to give you two sentences from a song's lyrics. And this is a song that Jesse and I used to use as sort of a Rick Roll video. We would send each other random links every so often and try to catch each other by clicking on this video, the YouTube video for this. Okay, here's the two sentences of lyrics. First person, well, how are we doing this? Live or in the YouTube video posted later?
Just in the video posted later, we'll open it up to everybody.
So we'll select at random, whoever. Okay.
Yeah.
So in the comments, put the band that sings this song. Here are the two sentences. When I was a young boy, my father took me into the city. And if you're in the live chat, do you know what song that is?
That is a great song. If you get the answer right in the comments, you are eligible. If you get the answer wrong, you're eligible. Just leave a comment. So the only thing you need to do to be eligible is to leave a comment on the video. We will get in touch with you. You also have to have a VO2 max of above 50. In order to be
Hmm.
eligible, you must be an organ donor. You must be active on your local
Yeah.
school board, resting heart rate of under 60, credit score over 700. If you meet these criteria, you are eligible. Very simple to very simple to enter. All right. What's your favorite band and songs, albums, Matt?
I like a lot of different genres, and I tend to like songs that were a top song at one point or another, some sort of Billboard hit at some point in history. I rarely just listen to an album, song one through the end. So lately I like classic rock, country, um, pop songs. In the past, I've listened to a lot more rap. Punk rock was a huge one for me. Oldies. I would say those are kind of the main ones.
Any bands in particular you want to shout out?
Um, Not really. Oh, and heavy metal when I'm in the gym. Usually I'll just listen to playlists that are already
Nice.
created, not my own.
So everything. That's like every every genre. For me,
Yeah.
I don't listen to a whole lot of music, honestly. I sometimes listen to music when I'm working. I really liked the band Rat-a-tat. When I was at Christmas with my brothers, my brother played Rat-a-tat when we were playing pool for hours. And yeah, it's just great music. There's no words usually. I mean, there's sometimes like weird words at the beginning, but it doesn't really have to do anything with the song. But good music. I also like just like piano music playing in the background,
Mm.
or on Spotify, there's channels for like it's like chill or something like that, where it's just like very soft music. Anytime there's music with lyrics, I get so distracted I can't focus on anything. So I generally do lyricless music. For family time, because I have three kids. We listen to a lot of Elvis. It's a family tradition. After I'm done with work on Friday for the weekend, we listen to Elvis during like prep for dinner and then dinner time. And then we will okay, ignore the chat. I do not like Baby Shark. And then for just like hanging around the house, we like to keep music clean for the most part with the kids around. We'll listen to some country, and we've been really liking Alan Jackson. I'm a fan of him. Any album in particular outside of those? I'm not a big like album guy, but I used to be obsessed with the Hamilton album. I would listen to that through, and even though it's like a 3 hour album, but
Can you give us
good
one
there
verse?
began. What's
One
that?
verse off the top of your head?
No, I'm not doing it. That's Discord only content.
Just speak it normally. One line.
I don't even know if I could. I can't
He's
do it off the top of my head. I haven't listened in a while.
okay.
That's it for the pod. If you want to send us questions for next episode, that is help@chessgoals.com. Anything else you want to wrap up?
Don't think so. No. So yeah, keep an eye on your YouTube. What do you call it? Homepage. You'll see or our page. You'll see this posted on YouTube. And then where else are we posting the uh podcast now?
Yeah, podcast.
Yeah.
Gonna cut this out. Podcast is live at Spotify and iTunes and YouTube. But if you want to watch the full unedited version, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. For the time being, we are streaming these live. It's kind of helpful because the chat helps us out with dates and all kinds of interesting points that we don't think of. So we may continue doing that. We're not sure. If you want to support the podcast, go to chessgoals.com, get yourself a course. If you want to practice your tactics, that's train.chessgoals.com. And you can save 50% off of a yearly subscription with the promo code podcast.